What is going on, guys? It is your boy Ollie Fuddy back with another World Cup recap. We are on day 14. That is 2 weeks now of this World Cup. We're at the halfway point, damn near. We're getting through the group stage. This is the end of the group stage. We're getting towards Group E, F, and G, all in action today. My goodness, we got to talk about the major takeaway of tonight, of today. Ecuador and Germany. Let me get you on the font mob as per usual. Whoo, whoo, whoo. What a result for Ecuador. Now I get it. Germany had nothing to play for, but when you look at the history of Germany, and this might actually bode very, very badly for how Germany does in this tournament. But you look at Germany, and bro, these guys have never had any chill. It didn't matter if they had something to play for or not. Last World Cup, they put it on Costa Rica, eliminated them too when Germany was already eliminated. You think about all of the fairy tales that Germany have come up against throughout the entire, their World Cup runs and their history at this tournament. And you can even talk about German football, right? Let's talk about Bayern Munich. Always, Bayern never chills on teams, right? We see Bayern always putting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sometimes on teams. They do not give a damn. So this was a crazy result for Ecuador to get, just knowing Germany's history and context, knowing they had nothing to play for. They're locked in as Group E winners already because of that head-to-head tiebreaker. Ecuador had to fight for everything still, and man, they got it. Look, we can talk about Angulo's goal. Great, great goal. Plaza's goal as well. But let's talk about one man today. Honestly, my man of the match. Willian Pacho. Willian Pacho, man. This guy's career has been absolutely incredible. Obviously, you know all about his backstory with his mom, unfortunately passing away before his debut match with Independiente del Valle, who is like one of the biggest clubs in Ecuador. And yeah, he went through their academy. I think he won the U21 Copa Libertadores there, and now you've gone through his career, right? He went from there, from Ecuador to Belgium to Antwerp for a few seasons, then gets picked up by Frankfurt, balls out there, secures a huge move to PSG, and is now a back-to-back two-time, the reigning, defending champion of Europe, and now he's here in the World Cup pocketing Germany's best attackers, pocketing Havertz, Undov, Sane, Verts, Musiala, you name it, Pacho was there. Absolutely incredible performance today from William Pacho. Also got to give a big shout out to Ordonia as well. Very great partner for Pacho. This whole Ecuador back line got a lot of hype going into this tournament, and rightly so, because they've only conceded 2 goals. Obviously, that last minute one to Ivory Coast, and this one today versus Germany, but mostly been a sure back line that you can trust, and that all starts with this man, William Pacho. And I especially bring him up because after Plata scored this banger, Germany was in full attack mode, man. Germany had quite a few chances, but William Pacho, whenever the ball was near him, he just snuffed out danger, put it out like a fire. My gosh. My gosh, shout out to William Pacho. And let's also shout out the goal scorers because Ecuador, up until this game, did not score a goal. I mean, how is it that you couldn't score a goal versus Curacao and Germany put up 7 on them, you know? They couldn't score a goal versus Ivory Coast either. So for me, that was always a big problem with with Ecuador, is that they had to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. And when they needed it most, they were able to do it just enough to get these 3 points and most likely qualify as one of the third place teams for the round of 32. Incredible, incredible result for Ecuador. We gotta shout out William Pacho. We gotta shout out the heart and the determination in this team. Angulo had a great game as well. And yeah, we can talk about Germany not having anything to fight for, and that showed in their performances. I think, it's like whatever, they lost, but they're gonna be in the same place regardless of this match. But this is Ecuador's story. So let's give all the props to Ecuador. One last thing with Germany though. I don't know how I feel like if this match should really tell you too much about him. Can you draw too many conclusions? For me, however, there is one thing, and that is Neuer is washed. I think we can say Manuel Neuer is kind of washed. And it's kind of been a thing building for a while now because even though at Bayern Munich, Bayern was one of the best teams in the world this season, and you could argue if you're talking about the entire season, who was the strongest team for the entire season, Bayern might have been the strongest team in the world. And Neuer was a big part of that. But obviously, that's also him in possession as well as due to his goalkeeping. But then you come up to these UCL knockouts and you kind of started to see it just a little bit, right? In particular, we can start with that Real Madrid tie because he was great that first leg. He was making some crazy saves. But then that second leg, I mean, some of those goals that Madrid scored were either directly because of him or goals that he should have saved, that an older, like a prior Neuer would save, right? A previous version of Manuel Neuer would save. I think it's starting to get to that time for him, father time defeats all, unfortunately. And then we saw it again with the PSG game, although he wasn't particularly responsible for any of those goals, but you think maybe he might save one goal or two. We could probably say that Dembele penalty, if he's just a little bit quicker, he might save that Dembele penalty. But he's 40, I think he's 41 or 40. Yeah, so he's, it's that time, man. It is that time. Look, I don't want to draw such a heavy conclusion, but I really am starting to think that Neuer is coming to the end of his time here, as a top goalkeeper. He might suffice because he's still so talented, especially with his feet and distribution. And he's not like a poor goalkeeper, but those, fantastic saves, those fantastic sweeps, the days where he's blocking a Ronaldo shot with his forearm singularly, those days are gone, long gone. And for Germany, I think a lot of how they do in this tournament will obviously be, their attack and whatnot, their main players up front, but also with how good Neuer can be for the next however many games they have in this World Cup. That being said, still a great win for Ecuador. And now we see how this group finishes. Obviously, Ivory Coast also beat Curacao today. Ivory Coast kind of got to a lead in that game pretty early. And from there, we're in control. Curacao fought and fought, but Ivory Coast showed their talent. Um, but this game in particular was the real story. And Ecuador, huge, huge win when they needed it, when their backs were against the wall. And now they're 4 points, even goal difference. 99% sure they will qualify to the round of 32. I think almost 100%, but I don't know. Like, I haven't seen any graphic that's like Ecuador qualified, but we'll see what happens. But I think, yeah, they're very much there. Big, big win for Ecuador. While we're at it, let's go to Group F. Now, this group was kind of always figured out, I think, after match day two, because of just you look at the talent and the way how we predicted these groups, and yeah, the Netherlands, Japan, Sweden, Tunisia. That's how it ends up. And for me, we talk about these games here, Japan and Sweden. I think they're pretty evenly matched, like how I was saying, man. I think the Netherlands, for as much as they can be maligned and oh man, we don't have an elite attacker, we don't have an elite Dutch attacker. I look at the totality of this Dutch team. It is so very well balanced, and that's why obviously they beat Tunisia with ease. But it's going to be hard for other teams in the tournament to beat them unless you're one of the big, big teams. I really think so. And even the big teams will struggle against this Netherlands side because they're just so complete. Even though they don't have a elite attacker, because they're so robust, it's still going to be a tough team to break down. Now, I think the talent gap between Japan and Sweden was a lot closer, and Sweden could have got one here, but I think Japan gets a well-deserved point and a well-deserved second place. Now you go up against Brazil in the next round. For Sweden, we don't necessarily know their place completely yet. Nothing's confirmed because could be France, could be Norway, but who knows if Norway win tomorrow? All of a sudden, Norway and Sweden, and that would be just a great Scandinavian derby there. But who knows? Who knows? Who? I mean, I wouldn't predict Norway to beat France, but yeah, that's Group E, man. It was a pretty straightforward group. All right, and lastly for tonight, Group D was in action between Paraguay and Australia, and Turkey, who were already eliminated, versus the US, who are already guaranteed to be winners. But we can start with that Turkey US game because coming off of it right now, I can just feel a little bit underwhelmed. Now, yes, this is the USMNT B team, quite literally. I mean, you got guys. I mean, McKenny's out there, but you got Reina out there and whatnot, and Aronson, Miles Robinson. So not the starting 11 usually for the US, but it's nice for these guys to get a World Cup match, on their resume. But man, it just kind of shows you there's still some more improvement for the US to do. And not that anyone ever thought differently, but I mean, you want to get to a point where you look at the big teams and their B teams, right? I look at France's B team, probably the best B team in the world, probably the best C team in the world. So France is a little different, but the USMNT should be aiming for that. And once we're at that level, then you'll really know how good we are. That'll really tell you how good we are. England's B team would be better. Like all of these B teams would be incredible. However, shout out to Turkey. Well fought, and obviously you're playing for pride. You're already eliminated. Just trying to get some points for your country. Now, with this Turkey A win, you probably might have had more drama without that head-to-head tiebreaker. I mean, still Paraguay and Australia drew, so it would have kind of taken them out completely anyway. But I feel a little bit weird about the head-to-head tiebreaker because I think games like this, I think Turkey technically still would have been in it if they had, surpassed enough goal difference to Paraguay and Paraguay were to lose or Australia were to lose. So it's a little bit unfortunate for them, but it is what it is. Turkey get a good win here, and it kind of shows you the U.S. still has a little bit more to go. For Turkey, it's good for them to ball out. They fought very well, they played very well, but at the end of the day, the U.S. don't need this matchup, and I hope this doesn't impact the form too greatly. The U.S. are locked in their position for the next round, so hopefully, we're ready to go starting in the round of 32. But we could have used the win, but I'm not gonna overreact. I'm really not. It means nothing. And if you are overreacting to this, then I think, come on, come on, man. This I remember France lost this exact kind of game. Well, actually, I think it was just a 1-0 to Tunisia, but a game like this that didn't matter because France were already qualified last World Cup for the next round, and they just played a bunch of B team, C team, right? And they lost that game, but at the end of the day, they made the final. So wouldn't take too much out of this, too much salt out of this, but take this with too much salt rather. But it is what it is. Good win for Turkey to get some World Cup points and go home a little bit happier, just a little bit. Let's talk about this Paraguay Australia game because neither of these teams could convert. And look, they both knew at the end of the day that if they had each had a draw, they'd qualify. So that I think that helped a little bit. But still, it's I think, the quality of these teams in particular for this game was lacking. There's several opportunities where if you just make the correct pass or try try not to over dribble this, that, and the third, a little tighter on the touches, Paraguay would have been in, Australia might have been in. So look, it is what it is. I think, to be honest, this game is kind of the definition of a dead rubber in the sense that both of these teams know they want to just qualify, no reason to play around with it. And yeah, I think now we're looking at this result. Australia goes through directly. Paraguay with 4 points, -2 goal difference. It's a little tough. We'll take a look at the third place table, but 4 points is usually enough, right? You're looking at Ecuador on 4 points. There's a bunch of other teams on 4 points. Sweden, Bosnia, and I mean, there's still teams you have to play, right? Algeria could be on 4 points. Croatia could be on 4 or 5 points. But not sorry, not 5 points or 6 points. Same with Algeria. If you're Scotland, if you're South Korea, it's looking scary because you're also looking at Cabo Verde, who might, who knows where they'll end up because it depends on that Spain Uruguay matchup so much. But also, if you're looking at Uruguay, who are also on 2 points, they could end up here, and Uruguay could end up being eliminated. That matchup is going to be so key. And I cannot wait for that one because wow, that's gonna be a game. CONMEBOL team fighting for their lives. You got to be there. That's must see football. That is must see football. Senegal as well, trying to do the impossible versus Iraq. And especially now, when you look at Senegal, if they just win 1-0, they're in this eighth spot for Scotland, assuming nothing else had changed. So, Scotland are, my gosh. And then same with Congo, who could probably most likely end up on 4 points as well in their group and in third place because they lost both to, or actually they drew with Portugal. So they could overtake Portugal, but they did lose to Colombia. So this, especially these two teams down here, could be crazy. And then just Cape Verde and Uruguay, both teams to watch here. Teams watching the drop, man. If you're South Korea, if you're Scotland, oh my gosh, this third place table is about to get crazy. Some team is going to get absolutely cooked here, and they probably are talented enough to be in the round of 32, but they just didn't have the points. They didn't have the goal difference. They didn't have the goals scored. This, that, or the other. And yeah, that's a little sad, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, man. But all right, you know what we're here for. This is the best part of the video, the bracket. So let's take a look at how the bracket looks right now. This says as it stands because I think the third place teams could still move around. However, a lot of these are confirmed. For example, South Africa and Canada locked in. I think we'll most likely see France, Sweden, but this could be Norway. This could be a different third place team depending on how it all shakes out. Um, but Germany are locked in here, and we're most likely going to see if France beat Norway tomorrow. France and Germany in the round of 32 in Philadelphia on July 4th. What a game that's about to be, man. I cannot wait for that next week. South Africa, Canada, two teams who could make some history, man. Netherlands and Morocco. Whoo, whoo. Nah, tears will be had for one of these teams, man, because Morocco, I'm swaying around in my chair here, as you so you tell I'm getting real comfortable. But Morocco, man, the way Hakimi's been performing this tournament, the way Saibari's been performing this tournament, Brahim Diaz hasn't had the best tournament, but he's still a key piece for Morocco. And you still have Unahi and Al Ainawi and these guys, Azraoui, right? But then the Netherlands, Cody Gakpo's been incredible, Brabi incredible, right? And then obviously that back line's mint. So, man, for one of these teams to go out so early, cannot imagine how devastating that's about to be. It's one thing to go out in the round of 16, quarterfinal, but man, round of 32, it's like you barely here, bro. You were barely here. We'll be awaiting that. Portugal and Ghana as it stands. This could change. Ghana and Croatia, big game. This could easily be Croatia. This could be Colombia. This could be Congo. Portugal could drop to third place, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because they're on 4 points, but they have better goal difference than Congo by a lot. But you know, anything can happen, man. I do want to I do want to double check that. Yeah, so Congo would have to beat Uzbekistan by like 6 goals or just enough goals, and Colombia would have to win by just enough goals to lower this for these two to switch. But man, like that could be wow, wow. Spain, Austria as it stands. Spain and Uruguay, big game. Austria and Algeria, that game could be very weird, right? Because if they assume Spain wins, and I'm not sure if those games play at the same time, we could actually take a look over here. No, that game happens after Spain and Uruguay. So you will have this set in stone by the time you play. If you're Algeria and Austria, you will know. Will I be able to choose Spain, or can I play the third place game? The thing is with the third place game, now if you're Algeria, it's like you're so close. Now 4 points, -2 goal difference, that gets you on par with Paraguay. But I guess you would be scoring more goals theoretically, unless it's a goalless draw. But then it's like, man, now you're talking about the really minute tiebreakers, right? The yellow cards and whatnot, and the red cards and fouls and stuff. So we'll see how that shakes out if you want to play that game, because it's a very risky game, because there's still teams, right? These teams at the bottom that can easily leapfrog into these top 8 spots. Um, Ivory Coast to Norway. We obviously talk about Norway being able to switch out of this spot potentially with a win tomorrow. these matchups are incredible. This is scheduled, right? US and Bosnia, Egypt and South Korea. South Korea might not be there. It's going to be very tight for them. But Egypt probably should. I think with the draw, they should qualify. It depends, though. You never know. Shock results, right? Iran needs to qualify as well. So, and they're tied on points with Belgium, who are in third place in that group, and Belgium will most likely beat New Zealand. So now you're asking Iran to really get a result, and then if Egypt lose, they could easily drop to those third place spots. Like there's just so much drama, man, so much drama. But the matchups from this round of 32 is going to be incredible. Right now, we have England and Ecuador. This could change as well. I know Ecuador was with Mexico at one point. Obviously, Scotland probably likely to drop out of the third place. This is totally in limbo. So there's so much. We go through it every video, but man, it's incredible to see this bracket develop. I think that last game between Algeria and Austria is going to tell us a lot, man. I'm so excited for that because the bracket will be done by that point. It'll just be Algeria and Austria basically fighting for third place and where they want to be in the bracket. But yeah, we'll be paying close attention to this. As far as today's teams, right? Germany's path is pretty clear. Let's just assume France stays here. I mean, you got to beat France. And if you can beat France, then you can get to the final. That's how I feel. If you can beat France, you can get to the final. Shout out Morocco, shout out Netherlands, but I don't care about any of those other teams. You can get to the final if you can beat France. Simple as that. On the other hand, Portugal and Spain look set for a crazy collision in the round of 16. Could you imagine Yamal going home in the round of 16? Could you imagine Ronaldo going home in the round of 16? Man, that's oof. I don't want to imagine it. The US, their path looks clear. I think whatever happens, the US are definitely in this quarterfinal spot. They're just too good, man. No matter who ends up in this third place spot. I don't think Senegal can get here, but you never know. But yeah, the U.S. should be in this in this quarterfinal spot against either Spain or Portugal, most likely, and that'll be crazy, crazy game, July 10th. I'm calling it now, man. They will be there. Brazil, their path is set. They're looking for a big showdown with England in the quarterfinals. This game is going to be tough. Well, this game against Japan is going to be tough, but also these two games, whoever you get, right here in the round of 16 should be also really tough. There could be a surprise upset there for Ivory Coast or Norway, but I think Brazil is talented enough to definitely get to the quarterfinals. And then what you do against England, 50-50, man. I can't call it. I can't call it. But I do think England will win the tournament, so I have to go with England. But that game's going to be tight. That game's going to be real tight. Argentina, their path is pretty much set. I'm assuming Colombia will get a result versus Portugal. So I'm going to keep Colombia here. Argentina and Colombia probably looking for another quarterfinal matchup, another Copa America final rematch, if you will. So yeah, that game will be fun in the quarterfinals. But man, I didn't mean to make this a prediction video, but what can I do, man? When you look at the brackets, what else can you do but predict? The matchups are so juicy, man. They're so juicy, and you could probably even see the likes of Senegal in this and Congo, and other teams. I think is Belgium even in this bracket right now? They're not. So Belgium will probably be in here at one point. Like this whole third place thing is going to really, really shake things up. Cabo Verde could be in there as well. We'll see what happens, man, but I'm looking forward to it. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Ollie Footy. Again, make sure you guys follow, like, subscribe. All my deets are in the description, all of the pages you need to follow. Until next time, it's been your boy, Ollie Footy. We out.